Who doesn't want to feel good? Not only just today, but as long as possible. And great strides have been made in the medical world to allow you to do that. And one of the guys who's, you've been doing this for as long as I've known you, and much longer before then, Dr. David Marino with the New Age Medical Centers in the Nature Coast. How are you, sir?
How you doing?
Well, I'm doing
Absolutely.
really, really good, though it's been a while since my last shot, so get back to me in a couple of days and I'll let you know. But as we age, what happens in aging process where we start to feel a little bit draggy?
Yeah, I think what's at the tip of the iceberg, which I think people aren't capturing, is inflammation. Everybody's talking about inflammation, and most people don't realize, but inflammation, a lot of it comes from the foods that we eat. And this is what kind of makes us fat and sick, Unfortunately, people don't realize this. And 70% of our inflammation starts because our immune system is lined up along our GI tract. And our GI tract is a very long, tube of absorption, for food and nutrients.
Now, the GI tract, gastrointestinal tract,
exactly.
Explain that a little bit more in layman's terms.
Yeah.
It goes in our mouth and comes out the other end.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. It generally starts with our stomach, breaking down with acid, and then basically going down into the duodenum with the pancreas taking out enzymes to help break down food. And a lot of the absorption happens in the small intestine, and then when it gets down to the colon, that's where you have a lot of bacteria that help finish up digestion and absorption of water, And so, unfortunately, these things get all, mucked up, because of inflammation.
And why? Are there universal things that people can do to make things better?
Yeah, typically what we're finding is that people are being affected by food sensitivities, which are not necessarily food allergies. They get confused. Food sensitivities are more of a delayed reaction. Food allergies are more of an immediate reaction, like what you normally get with, consuming peanuts or shrimp. Right away you swell up like your lip and your tongue.
That would be an allergy.
Yeah, but food sensitivities are a little trickier. They can happen up to a day later. And some of those symptoms that we get from food sensitivities are things like fluid retention, fatigue, brain fog, irritable bowel syndrome, sinus problems, headaches, joint pain, acne, eczema, irritability, anxiety. I can go on and on.
Now, it's got to be different for every person. Not everybody is sensitive to that. For me, It's taken me forever to figure this out. I love Greek yogurt, but if I eat it too often, I just notice that my stomach's not right.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not immediate.
No, it's not immediate, yeah. And it's different than when it comes to dairy. Lactose intolerance is totally different than food sensitivities. Lactose intolerance has to do more with not having enough of an enzyme, to help break down.
What does that do?
Usually right away when you consume anything with dairy, you get a loose bowel movement or you get diarrhea because it's not getting broken down. It's one of those enzymes that we talked about, in the pancreas, and we get deficient in that over time, and, we can't, digest the dairy.
Now, as we get older, we do change. Now, I'm going to give you an anecdote and tell me what's going on here and whether or not this means anything or not. My brother-in-law owned an IHOP, International House of Pancakes, for 30 years, and all of a sudden, one day, he was whipping up some buckwheat pancakes, and he went into anaphylactic shock. Is that the correct term, anaphylactic?
Anaphylactic shock, yes.
He went into that. He knew that's what it was when the emergency room, the ambulance took him away, and he had developed, apparently overnight, an allergy to buckwheat. Is it possible to develop allergies that quickly?
Yeah, usually that can happen right away. It's because what happens is sometimes there's the foods that we eat on a regular basis, so our immune system becomes sensitive to it, and over time you can develop that sounded more like an allergy, like an IgE related type of antibody.
Yeah, he just had to stay away from that, and he was fine, but he was around it a lot. So, in other words, would this happen to somebody if they loved key lime pie and ate it every day, and all of a sudden it made them sick?
Yeah, some people just can develop a lot of sensitivities to even chemicals or food additives, sulfates, a lot of things that nowadays are in our foods, that are not typically we weren't supposed to be exposed to, I remember one time a girl in our office, one girl was eating a peanut butter sandwich, and she was using the phone, and she hung up, and then the girl that's sensitive to peanut just happened to pick up the same phone that she did, and she went into anaphylactic shock without even consuming the peanut butter, just the fume, just the smell of the essential oils, And we had to. Luckily, we have EpiPens in our office. But yeah, it can happen that quick, real, with a very minimal, exposure.
When should people get tested for these things, and when do you? Is it do you treat people of all ages, or
Absolutely.
is it more older, or what?
This second can happen to anybody, And so typically we do a blood test, and we also do stool analysis to figure out where are the hidden sensitivities, the things that people can't really tell that they're sensitive to. Typically it happens because it's the foods that we crave, that we eat on a regular basis, that we become sensitive to. As we grew, back when we were cavemen or Paleolithic, we ate, and we hunters and gatherers, we ate different types of foods in different types of the year and different areas. So we weren't eating.
Changing our diet.
Yeah, now it's unfortunately everything is very agricultural and processed, and these are things that our foods weren't designed to,
Well, is it a good idea to change your diet from time to time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we call elimination diet. And that's one of the things that we can customize based on your food sensitivities, as we discussed, and we can kind of take away the bad things that you're reacting to and put on new things, because it's bad to take things off, but not to give people options to put something else new into the diet. And we rotate the diet every 4 days, so they don't develop new food sensitivities. Again, this is different than food allergies.
What about men? Let's talk about obesity just a little bit. Men and women, as they age, they tend to get fatter. Why does that happen?
As we age, a lot of things can happen. Most of the time, it's not sleeping well. If we don't sleep well, we don't get enough of rest, and we get these stress hormones building up.
So it starts with not sleeping well.
Oh yeah. I mean, basically, if you don't sleep well, it's been shown that you get a buildup of a appetite hormone called ghrelin, and you get more cravings. I think most people have noticed that. They don't get a good night's sleep consistently. They start craving a lot of different things. And the next thing that happens is a hormonal imbalance. You get too much buildup of cortisol or stress hormone, and that throws off a lot of the other hormones.
People don't set out to be obese.
No. Absolutely
not. It's not a planned thing. It comes upon them gradually. Let's say somebody comes to you, they're a 55-year-old man with a gut that just says, I just don't feel vital, and I heard you talk with Mike on 99.9 FM, and I want to, what can you do for them? What's the process? You do a blood test what?
Yeah, typically this is a good process to start, is to see what foods do they need to stay away from, and not everybody's is the same. One man's medicine could be another man's poison. So unfortunately, somebody can say just eat broccoli and chicken. But what if you're one of those broccoli or chicken is one of the foods that you're reacting to? And that doesn't mean that's a food that you can't ever have, but you just got to eliminate it out of your system for a few months and slowly reintroduce, because the reintroduction of those foods is important too. At a timely fashion.
So you'll talk to them. You'll do some tests, urinalysis, blood tests, and you'll ask them what they eat, what drugs they're taking, what their birthday is, and give me some success stories, some examples, if you will, of people who come in without naming names.
I think the most success I've had is people with autoimmune disease. Right now we got over 24 million people in the United States with autoimmune disease. When I started my practice, it was very rare to see somebody with Hashimoto's. Now it's a common theme. Hashimoto's is where your immune system develops antibodies and it blocks, thyroid receptors, and people develop, hypothyroid. That's one of the main reasons where a lot of people develop obesity, is because they're not getting a full breakdown on what's going on with their thyroid.
They have an autoimmune disease that's leading that. They're not necessarily gouging away on ice cream and junk food. They're now. What are the symptoms of that? Just getting fatter, sleeping?
Yeah, basically, you just get tired, fatigued, brain fog. A lot of things that we kind of discuss with food sensitivities, but with the thyroid, you end up having a decreased metabolism, and energy, and so you're not really getting your basic, what we call your metabolic rates up, so people are they say, oh, I don't eat very much, but I gain weight, and that's one of the typical things that we see is that most people, when they get tested for their thyroid, they're within range, but the range is very wide, so what is it to say that you should be on the upper side of the range instead of the middle or the lower? So unfortunately, most of their doctors will tell them you're within normal range, but normal range is not the ideal range, the ideal number. You have to. The main thing is you have to ask the patient, how do you feel? Because they can have a normal number but not feel right,
Not all doctors do what you do. They, primary care has changed. There are some doctors who are against hormones for women. There are side effects, but what's the pros and cons, and why are there some people who are just against that? And anecdotally, I will tell you that my wife went to her annual OBGYN the other day, and he found out she was taking hormones, and he says, well, you look really good, but I don't recommend it for a variety of reasons because so and so and so and so, and yet he said it's working wonders for you.
Yeah.
Why do so many doctors recommend women to have a less than vibrant life than they could have?
Because the problem is in the past, people have only treated hormones one at a time. You have to look at all of them. One hormone can affect the other, and it's all about balance. And unfortunately, people think that it's all going to be good with hormones. Like in certain societies in the Amazon or in Australia, you got societies where women don't even go through menopause because their adrenals, they pick up the slack that the ovaries stop making hormones. Because they live an ideal lifestyle.
Are these the ones we see about in the National Enquirer where a woman has kids at 80 years old?
I'm not sure about that one. But though, typically the normal...
They have babies after 50.
Yeah, because they're not... Yeah, because, ideal world, you were supposed to work 8 hours, play 8 hours, work 8 hours, play 8 hours, and sleep 8 hours. You don't see that anymore. There's no balance. It's constantly stress, especially now with smartphones and social media and everything. People are just stressed out all the time. Am I going to get enough likes or?
You're all about wellness.
Yeah.
You're all about improving the quality of life for everybody. And even if you don't have a problem, give your office a call. You have 2 offices. You're located, in Spring Hill?
Yeah, I have an office in Spring Hill over here on Cortez, close to Oak Hill. And then I have another office on State Road 54 in Land O'Lakes, right off of the Suncoast, veterans.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Me and my wife both got to see you.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
By the way, you have not aged a day.
Stop being so nice.
You're practicing what you preach.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doc.
Hey, thank you. And now, if somebody wants to contact you, it's just New Age Medical Center online.
Yeah, New Age Medical Center is online. Absolutely.
Great seeing you.
Thank you, bud.
Dr. David Marino, thank you. On 99.9 FM.